Cracking everybody. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to a new video. So today we're sticking with Joe Rogan. I think I've already explained why. When I'm doing these reaction videos, remember I'm still new to doing the reactions. Um, so far Joe Rogan is one of the only channels that you can do a reaction video to and YouTube doesn't give you a problem, at least in my case. Right? So I found one today, and it says Joe Rogan and David Chappelle, or Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle. What did you do for the 10 years after you quit the Chappelle show? Um, David Chappelle or Dave Chappelle, I think is probably, if not the one of the top three greatest comedians ever. The dude is very intelligent, and I think a lot of people overlook that, and that's why he was able to come back from his so-called fall from grace, which wasn't a fall from grace at all. He stood on his morals and his principles, and it paid off for him. I haven't seen this video. I wanted to do a blind reaction with you guys. That said, let's go.
She asked me my name. She said, "What's your name?" I go, "David." She goes, "Well, this is David on the list. What's your last name?" I go, "Chappelle." And she looks up, and I look around, and everyone's kind of looking. I could tell they had heard of me, but they didn't know that was me.
Oh, right, right,
It was
right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This was after I quit the show, but not long after, like '05, '06.
What did you do for those 10 years?
I don't know how to shit. I learned a lot. I mean, but it was a humble existence. I had young children, and I was raising my kids. I was living a suburban life. Uh, and then every once in a while, I get this feeling like I'm the funniest guy. I got to get out there, and I would like fly to Denver, do a week in Denver or something. And that's when you would read I was doing like these 6 hour shows. I performed like I was desperate for it. I loved it.
Yeah.
That's smart, man. He had walked away from what was it, 40 million they offered him or something, but because he knew he was worth way more, and he knew they were robbing him allegedly for a whole lot more, right? So imagine walking away from that type of money, knowing you could be blackballed in the industry. Like he said, he had young kids. That you gotta applaud that man for that, man.
And at one point, I had done one of these big comedy tours that Live Nation put together, that Oddball tour. And I did all right. I mean, I had a good run. I wiped out in Hartford, and that was all over the internet. That was the first time that thing had happened to me. But for the most part, the tour went good. But it was a tough tour for me because it was a long show. I had to close it. My chops weren't as tight as they normally were. But I didn't suck by any means. But could have been better.
Humbling.
It was humbling, but it made me want to go back. And the shows were like, every show was like 20,000 seats. They were like all these
What year was this around?
shit. I can't remember. Obama was president, maybe. I don't know, 8, 9, 10.
But you
around
were
there.
you were famous for just showing up places. You would just fly into places.
That's the one. That's when I started doing. I used to, in the summer. I started riding motorcycles, which is like very uncharacteristic of me, but I loved it.
Midlife crisis, right? He went through something and was trying to find himself and find his happiness, and knowing that comedy was his outlet as well as his passion, and people were trying to stifle it, and he wasn't gonna let it happen, and he had to figure out how to make it happen for him again. Some people can go through the fight. Like me with my background, having gone to prison in order to figure out how to be a man. Um, I respect this a whole lot more.
I said, I'm gonna ride my bike across country, and I did. I cheated. I had a tour bus with me, it's a trailer, so if it rained or something, or if I just wanted to bail, I could. But I rode across country, and I'd never seen America like that. When you talk about how big it is and expansive, and man, I saw all the little pockets on a bike. You really
Yeah.
feel the environment, you see things.
That's beautiful. That's something that I wish I could do. Hopefully, I'll get the opportunity at some point. But again, having been in prison the majority of my life, I've only been out of the state one time in my life, and that wasn't a, we went to take a loved one to hospice care, and unfortunately we lost him About less than 2 weeks later. That's the only time I've been out of state. But I would love to be able to not jump on a motorcycle, but I would love to be on a bus. Have enough money to have a tour bus and be able to you know see the entire country. Not through the prism of some producer, creating a documentary, but through my own eyes and my own interactions. I think that's great.
Um, and I'd stop and play. One of my favorite birthdays was here in Austin. I'd never been to Austin really, and I pulled up on 6th Street. I'd been to Austin, but I never seen Austin. Pulled up on 6th Street. It was my birthday. I was riding with the guy. He's like, "What do you want to do for your birthday?" And at that time I wasn't drinking or smoking or anything. I said I want to do stand up, and I found a bar. It was right around closing, and I saw the DJ packing up, and I said, "Can I use your microphone?" And he recognized me, so he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." And I went up there and I just started talking shit. And but it was just like teasing the bar staff as they're cleaning up, talking to patrons, and get it home fast, buddy, and all that shit.
Right.
And people laugh, and it was like I used to do street comedy in New York. It kind of reminded me of that, like building a crowd. And after a while, people stopped and listened. Now I'm not a tech savvy dude. Twitter had come out, and I guess people had started tweeting like, "Yo, this is crazy. Dave Chappelle just in here ranting." Man, it might have took like an hour. That place was packed. And I must have stayed on stage 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
And they closed the door. They locked the door because it was after hours. And I was in there killing it. It
Wow.
was best birthday I ever had. One of the best birthdays I ever had. Sometime around when I turned 40, I just decided that I'm going to have fun. Like right now, this is a weird thing to talk about, but after DMX passed and Black Rob, and, now far more often people from my peer group pass away. And it just makes me feel like, it's not a midlife crisis, it's almost the opposite of that. It's like, look, I know I don't get to stay here forever. My time is limited and precious, and I don't take any of these things for granted. I don't take this money for granted, this platform, and I'm not talking about the fame platform, I'm talking about comedy. This genre, like, I make it. This genre, it's been so good for me. My social life, the people that I've met, the friendships that I've had, some that I've lost along the way, these memories we make. As the years go on, I'm like, what a special, special way to live your life.
Yeah.
Doing what you love. It always sounds cliche when people say that, because how many people really get to do that? Do what they love and make a living at it. And I just noticed, this guy's worth so much money. He's got so much money. And he's on here with a wrinkled shirt with holes in it. You know why? Because he's not a materialistic person. That shirt is just a way to stay warm and be accepted in society. You got to be clothed, man. But he's experiencing life, and he's always watching, and like he said, he's always trying to be happy. That's cool.
And to see the world, like it's like when we did those dates. Where were we, in Seattle
Yeah.
and Utah? Was it Salt Lake
Yeah.
City?
Yeah.
And one of those nights there was a massacre in Dayton. It's not far from where I live. People where I live hang out in Dayton.
Was that the night we were there?
We were together when that happened. That same night, the guy that owned one of those comedy clubs in New York was murdered too. It was like a really dark night, and I'd found all this out right before I was going on. Like, you didn't know you were already on stage as this news was unfolding. I'm sure you got an earful when you got off.
Yeah.
But I was like, phew. During the run, we would go places and I'd see flags at half staff, and I'm like, oh shit, that's for like my city. It really hit home. And the best part of that experience was being with comedians. If anything bad ever happens, comedians are who you want to be with. 9/11, I was in a room full of comedians because I had to, I was staying on West Broadway and Canal Street, which is not far from the Trade Center. So, like Canal Street, I'm on the north side of the street. From the south down, the city was evacuated, so I got to stay in my hotel. But during the day, we didn't know that I had a new baby, and I ended up going to a comedian's house that lived in Greenwich Village. A bunch of comedians were there. As bad as that day was, that was the room to be in. It's something that these guys and girls have.
He was in a better place than me. When 9/11 happened, I had just got out of Pelican Bay Shoe. I had been transferred back to New Folsom for my second time at New Folsom, and I remember that morning. Um, so my experience was a whole lot different. Being in a place full of, despair and anger and rage and mistrust, and that's where I was at. And he was in a room on that horrible day with a bunch of comedians. Um, I've always thought that and heard that comedians off stage are um, they deal with a lot of sadness and depression. And I know that we're seeing this. I thought we were gonna see something funny today. I'm sure you guys did too. But it is what it is. This is who Dave is. This is how he creates his comedy, and he's a deep dude, man.
Always inspired courage in me and levity in me. There's some subtext of comedy that everything's going to be okay.
I spent the day with Joey Diaz and Ralphie May.
Oh, wow. 9
Yeah.
11?
Yeah.
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 Like who else would you have rather been with? When you think back of the tragedy, I bet you can think of 4 or 5 things you laughed at
Yeah.
that day. Not about the tragedy, but we just laugh.
We were high as fuck, and we were just freaking out about the fact there's no planes. Like, look at this guy. There's no planes. There's no planes.
It's that. Comedians,
Yeah.
it's funny that this genre is under attack because to me, this is the everything's going to be okay genre.
It's under attack because people have this ability to complain about things now, and then people pile on. It's a new thing, and they realize it's very useful. It's a good weapon, and if you choose targets, you could take targets out. You can go after them, and so it becomes a hobby. It becomes a hobby. Like if you see a window and you got a rock, you feel like throwing that rock. And so a lot of times these targets aren't justified, but you can find a justification. You could say, oh, they put these words together in this order, and if you look at it in quotes written down on paper, you go, oh, well, this is ableist, or this is this, or this is that. This is something we can attack. Let's attack. This is transphobic. This is homophobic. Attack. And it's a recreation. It's recreational outrage.
It is exactly. The last time I came on your show when Donnell was here, and I fucked up. I looked at the comment section. I'll never do that shit again. I'll never do that shit. First comment is somebody said, Dave looks like he stinks. Word. Like, word. Like, what did I do? What did I ever do to you, bud? She asked me my name.
Well, I'm glad we closed on a joke, right? That was enlightening for me. Hopefully, it was enlightening to you guys, and hopefully, excuse me, I'm still sick. Hopefully, when you hear stuff like that from somebody that famous and that successful in his area, we don't know in his private life, is he fully happy? Is he not? He says he is, and we're gonna take it at that. But I think there's a lot of fruits within this little video, and I'm glad I found it. Um, and hopefully it'll let you guys um, take a minute to reflect on where you are in your life, and are you willing to say, you know what, I want to be happy and less stressful, and how do I make that happen? I don't know. Maybe you watch some more of Dave Chappelle on any platform he goes on, because he's always a deep thinker. um, if you liked this video, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up, hit the like. If you didn't, hit the thumbs down and let me know what the problem was so we can try to tighten it up. Also, share the video with somebody you think would enjoy it or maybe needs it. If you're not subscribed, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Other than that, everybody please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, right? I'm out.